Hey, welcome back to Vox Terra. If you haven't done so, please do subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you know when I'm putting up a new video. Today's another video where I'm going to be critical of Biden, but let's make it clear, if for no other reason than for the sake of our environment, it's very good that Trump is out. So in this video, the criticisms I'm going to make of Biden, I'll tie back to Trump as well. Today's criticisms are of Lloyd Austin, the pick for the appointment for defense secretary. Now, most of the media, I believe, when they're covering the controversy about Lloyd Austin, really basically focused on the fact that he hasn't been out of uniform long enough and they had to get a waiver. But I think that misses the bigger story, which is his connections to Raytheon, and therefore what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. You see, it's like I heard Cornell West say in passing, and Cornell West, if you don't know, is what I would call a liberal leftist, intellectual professor, a very smart man. Whatever you think about the liberals and the left, I think he's very intelligent. And when I heard Cornell West say in passing, before Biden made any of his picks, he was concerned or warning that yes, Biden might make very colorful picks, and Cornell West himself is African American. Cornell was warning that Biden might make very colorful picks and have a very, inclusive cabinet. But now to paraphrase Cornell West, those appointments might still be part of that same, those same vested business interests, those same business interests that really control our media and our government and our whole society and our thinking, really, for that matter. And really, in my case, what I'm concerned about is what I call the reckless elements of the business community. So just to give you a rundown on the military-industrial complex and what is that, I looked at Britannica, and I'll just cite from you from there. The term military-industrial complex was first used by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, I know that sounds a little more like Roosevelt, but, that's just the voice I'm doing here. In his farewell address on January 17th, 1961, Eisenhower warned that the United States must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. And that's where some people claim that term was first coined, which included members of Congress from districts dependent on military industry. So what Eisenhower means by that, according to Britannica, is this coalition of the military industries, like specifically he mentions in the Britannica, the author of this Britannica piece, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and then Congress people with their districts that are dependent on money from those companies. And Eisenhower believed, according to this entry in Britannica, that the military-industrial complex tended to promote policies that are not in the country's best interest, like the nuclear arms race. And what do we have today from the nuclear arms race? Well, lots of underreported radioactive contamination. Now, with that starter from Mother Jones, I'm going to cite from Mother Jones, Biden's Pentagon pick has deep defense industry ties. Now it could complicate his nomination. Retired Army General Lloyd Austin sits on the board of Raytheon. Now that appointment already happened and already went through, but this is great background. Last year, Raytheon received more than $16 billion in federal government contracts, the fourth most of any company. So according to the Mother Jones article, he's opposed by the progressive flank of the Democratic Party. Now here they're defining progressive to mean the people standing up to the military-industrial complex. The article points out, since the Yemen war began, Raytheon has booked at least a dozen major sales to the kingdom, meaning Saudi Arabia, and its partners, worth more than $5 billion. Congress, and that happened under Trump, obviously. Congress has repeatedly passed resolutions that oppose further sales to Saudi Arabia and its Middle East allies. But firms like Raytheon have relentlessly lobbied the Trump administration to keep the spigot flowing. Under Trump, who appointed former Raytheon lobbyist Mark Esper as a defense secretary, Raytheon has been able to secure influence at the highest levels of government. They have exploited these connections to keep the bombs flowing. In recent years, the boardrooms of major U.S. defense contractors have become something of a feeder school for senior Pentagon leaders. Trump's 3 defense secretaries who served for an extended time, James Mattis, Patrick Shanahan, and Esper, had roles at General Dynamics, Boeing, and Raytheon before joining the administration. Now, also, I didn't see mention in that article, although it might have been, there's also ties not only between government and these military contractors, but also the media, which explains a lot of the news coverage. Now, just to remind you that Trump's not actually standing up to this military-industrial complex, which, if you want to call something a deep state, I guess you could call that a deep state. He's not standing up to it. He actually facilitated it, or wasn't standing up to it. He actually facilitated it. From Defense News, they point out that Trump, put through a $23 billion weapons sale to the United Arab Emirates, which, sold weapons on behalf of Lockheed Martin, General Atomics, and Raytheon. So I bring this up because a lot of leftists have often said both sides are the same, Democrat, Republican, they're all part of the same thing. But then somehow, magically, a lot of people within these so-called right-wing camps thought they're not part of that same thing. But they are. Trump was only the front of it. But the people now feeling like Biden's in, it's all going to be great, kumbaya. Well, there's a valid point on the left's criticism, especially when it comes to military-industrial complex and these overseas adventures and this militarism. Now, where I disagree with that left-wing criticism, as I've said many times before, is that the Democrats have been historically much more receptive to environmentalists, and now have gone a long way to kind of begin to distance themselves from the fossil fuel industry that really is dominating the Republican Party. So I hope you found this video helpful. Some of these left-wing criticisms, if we want to call it that, of some of the Biden picks, and that this will help you as we go through this process. Get your bearings when you're talking to your friends and you're trying to, really make a better world. If you found my video helpful, please remember to subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so you know I'm putting up a new video. Like, comment, and if you feel so inclined, support a PayPal or Patreon. And until next time, peace be with you.